Dear friends, in this video I'd like to share with you the prophetic meaning of the Hebraic year 5781 and how that impacts us as we head into 2021. My name is Pastor Enoch Lavender, and I've been studying the Hebrew roots to our faith for quite a number of years. So I'd just like to share with you some insights into the meanings, firstly of numbers in the Bible. You see, the Hebrew Bible is full of numeric symbolism and plays a lot on the meaning of words. So prophetic destinies were often tied to the meaning or a play on the meaning of a name. And let me give you an example. When Jacob said his blessing over his 12 sons, one of them had a very unusual play on the name, and most of them had some plays on the name, but one had a very strong one. That was Gad. In Genesis 49:19 it says, "Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at last." If you look at it in the Hebrew, it literally says, Gad, a Gad shall gad him, but he shall gad at last. Because Gad can mean a troop, it can also mean to overcome, and so the whole prophetic destiny of Gad is tied to the prophetic meaning and the play on the meaning of Gad's name. And so as we look at years, each year, from a Hebraic perspective, has got a name, and that name carries a meaning. And there's many shades of meaning to that name, and so in this recording I want to share with you some of those meanings related to 5781. So the letters of 5781 is the letter Pei, which we've got on the top right, and the letter Aleph. Pei relates to 80, and Aleph relates to 1. So the 5780s, so in other words the decade that we're in, relates to Pei. And the meaning of Pei is a mouth. So it relates to what we speak, what comes out of our mouths. So as we are beginning this decade now with 5781, it's talking then about Aleph, which will give us insights about the first things we are to say, about the things that will come out of our mouths first. You see, when we're given an opportunity to speak, some of us are very keen to have a go and say something, but what are we meant to say from a biblical perspective, from a Hebraic perspective, and especially now as we head into 5781? Well, Aleph is a silent letter. It's the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it has no sound in and of itself. And perhaps that tells us that in this year of the mouth and Aleph, we first need to learn when to keep quiet. If we are to speak and speak wisely, let's first listen. Let's first hear what others have to say. And let's also learn to shut our mouths when we should. Because sometimes we're so quick and so easy to blab off anything. But it says in Proverbs that even a fool can appear wise, basically as long as he keeps his mouth shut. So there's a time for us to be silent and to keep our mouths shut. James 1:19 says, "My beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear and slow to speak and slow to wrath." In our society, there is such a tendency today to have knee-jerk reactions. We hear some tragic story on the news and we all jump up and down and we're very angry and very upset and we blame someone. But often as time goes by and one looks into it more, one finds out that the story was not true, or it wasn't that way after all. So let's take the time to hear. Let's be slow to jump to conclusions. And then when we speak, it will be the words that God wants us to speak. I'm concerned that many Christians are speaking things that might be right, but it is hateful and harmful for people. And from a non-Christian perspective, it will drive people away from the faith. Yes, we need to stand up for truth, but we need to have wisdom how we speak so that we win the hearts as well. So the lesson from 2020, I believe, is not to judge situations too quickly. Silence and accusations. Matthew 27:12, while Jesus was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. You know, it's so built in to human nature to respond, to use our mouths and open them wide and say, no, it's not true, those accusations are false. But Jesus demonstrated the character that he had by keeping his mouth silent at that time. Yes, there's a time to speak up for yourself. Yes, there's a time to explain where you're coming from, but there's also a time when unreasonable accusations are coming, that you're not to open your mouth, but to let God open his mouth and defend you. Let God do the talking. Let him work on your behalf. You know, if we take up our own cause and fight for ourselves, then God will leave us to it. He'll say, well, you're doing the best you can. I'll leave you to do it yourself. But when we let him do the talking, he'll take care of it. We read about how Moses was being accused again and again by people in the Exodus generation, and how Miriam and Aaron were murmuring and complaining against him, and Moses did not speak up, and he did not defend himself, but God called Aaron and Miriam on the carpet, and he said, "What are you doing talking about Moses?" So Moses, he went on to say, was a humble man, but God defended him. And this is a year and a time for us to learn that humility of not fighting our own cause, but letting God take care of it for us. Silence and promotion. There's a rabbinic story of the letter Aleph, that in the beginning, as God was putting together the Hebrew alphabet, he had all the letters there, and he was wondering which one should be first, and all the letters apparently came up and began to talk, and all the letters gave their reasons why they should be first, but Aleph was silent. And so God chose Aleph to be first. And it's a cute little story, but it does illustrate a biblical principle that as we promote ourselves, we're put last. But as God sees us waiting our turn and biding our time, he will promote us in his way and his time. We need to learn in this year to be still and let God promote us. There was a time when I was in a church situation where I had just joined this church, and I was fresh out of Bible college, and I was ready to get involved, and I felt God specifically tell me to keep my mouth shut. Not to tell them who I was or what I could do, but just to sit and learn. And the time came down the track that I got involved, but I had to for a season keep my mouth shut and let God promote me his way, rather than me put myself out there as a big name young adults leader or whatever, because God had his timing. So let us learn in this year to keep our mouth shut and let God open those doors for us. So the first lesson of this decade of the mouth is knowing when to be silent, or being slow to speak, and letting God defend us, letting God exalt us in his time. So thank you for watching this part 1 on the prophetic meaning of 5781 and 2021. We'll continue in our next video to talk about how Aleph relates to God himself and also to man, as well as to end times. So follow us on the next video, or go to our website at pastorenoch.com.au for more information.